The 76ers with a loss, possibly sinking to the bottom of the standings. Let's check it out on the other side right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the NBA G League affiliate of the Philadelphia 76ers. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe in addition to wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can also check us out at the free daily newsletter that's on lockedondaily.com. So the 76ers, a half a game back of the tanking standings, you could say, Keith, of those Toronto Raptors. That's going to be a fun one now on Wednesday for those fans that want to rejoice in the 76ers loss. But 9 players dressed for Philadelphia in just a very, very bad game for them overall for this team.
Yeah, it was a horrible game. I mean, here's the thing. There was one point, just to put things in context, where you look on the floor, and the 76ers had 3 guys who were former two-way players, or either, one of them was a two-way player in Reese. Yeah. And then you had Justin Edwards out there, and then you had Jared Butler, who was a former two-way player. And, they had Jeff Doughton out there as well. So you look at it, you had 2 guys who were two-way players, 2 guys were former two-way players, and then you had just another dude out there with them. And you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, wow, this is bad. And again, it's nothing against these guys. It's just that, they just didn't have a lot of first-round picks playing last night. And they've only had 3 when you look at it. Yabusele, Quentin Grimes, and Alani Walker III. And aside from that, they had more undrafted players than anything else. So it was a bad game. I mean, you look at the score, you'll say to yourself, they lost 132 to 123 to the Atlanta Hawks on the road. Quentin Grimes had 35 points, marking the 4th time in his career as a Sixer since the trade that he scored more than 30 points, but he scored 17 of that in the 4th quarter with the Hawks with a sizable lead, right? It just wasn't a good game. And here's the big thing. In the 1st quarter, they were shooting lights out from 3. Mm-hmm. And then in the 2nd quarter, they couldn't make a basket at all. And it got to a point in the second half, I hate to say it, the game became unwatchable. Yeah. Unwatchable. And this is what this version of the Sixers are turning into.
They are. And it's interesting because, they come off a back-to-back and they get a win against the Jazz. And it looked like a depleted team. Now, as you alluded to, you have Jeff Doughton, who's a two-way player out there. You have Alex Reese. You have former two-way players that were in the beginning of the season in Justin Edwards and Jared Butler. Once again, it's no offense to those guys as well. Ricky Council, a two-way last year, getting that standard deal this year as well. No offense to those guys. We're just talking about a product of an NBA game right now that you're really not used to seeing in some past seasons with the Philadelphia 76ers. And to me, when you look at it out there on the floor, it's just some bad basketball. It seemed like a depleted team that was really shorthanded, that was just tired through 3 quarters of the game. And the Hawks, they were able to come out there and win it easily from that standpoint. And the close score looks that way due to them having the lead later on. The one thing about Quentin Grimes, I think that he's the lone bright spot. Now, granted, 14 points coming in the 4th quarter, but he has more 30-point games as a Sixer this season than Paul George. So that is what we mean by this is just a bad team. It's been a bad season, and the organization taking a fall a little bit too from what we've seen on the floor for the Philadelphia 76ers. Keith, this team just seems to be getting worse and worse. And you mentioned this the other day, and I want to go back to your point, and we're not going to talk too much about the tanking standings here in this very episode. Later on we will, but we're not even talking about a team that is purposely trying to lose. We saw that with the Jazz the other night. We're talking about a team that just the product of the floor is really, really bad.
Yeah, it's getting really bad, but I'm starting to think that they're starting to look and see certain things now and starting to realize it. Like, you know what? It's as much as we're saying we want them to play, it just seems like it's not doing us any good. Like, I'll be shocked moving forward if they continue to struggle and teams around them continue to win. I'll be shocked if they just don't shut it down after what I saw last night. And the thing about it is, like, we're looking at this 76ers team right now. And they look like, for opposing teams playing the Sixers is team get right, meaning if you're a struggling ball team and you really want to win a game, you're happy that the 76ers are on your schedule because you're like licking your chops. Or they're also team build confidence. What I mean by that is if you got a young rookie who needs to just shine on someone to get confidence, that's the 76ers right now. And even when we look at look at Quentin Grimes, and believe me, I'm not trying to disparage what he did. It was great, but he played 39 minutes in that game. Mm-hmm. He the most minutes of anyone. He shot the ball 25 times. That was by far the most of anyone. And we're talking about on both teams. So George Niang, a former 76er who came off the bench for the Atlanta Hawks, shot the ball 16 times, right? So he shot the ball more times than George. And then on his own team, Lonnie Walker, the fourth, shot the ball 14 times. So he shot the ball 11 times more than him. So when we talk about, yes, he did this, he did that, he played the most minutes and he took the most shots, including the most three-point shots. He shot 11 threes. The next closest person to him was Lonnie Walker on his team, who took 7. And then Riche, the first overall pick, or the first, for their first pick for the Hawks, he shot 8 threes. Niang shot 8. So, you know what I mean? Like, it was set up for my man to get 40 towards the end. It was set up for him to get 40.
And he was able to get close to it, but nevertheless, having the opportunity to do that on a team that just has not looked good whatsoever. Ricky Council, in addition, we talked a little bit about him last night. He had 19 points, matching a career high. Jeff Doughton, 17 points. But when you're naming these names, we're talking about Jeff Doughton, who is a two-way player. We're talking about Ricky Council, who has struggled as of late, was just on assignment by the Bluecoats. Once again, no disrespect to these guys. I'm able to cover them with Delaware, especially when Jeff plays with the Bluecoats, and they're really good team players, this, that, and the other. But we're talking about an NBA basketball game on a team that had Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey at the beginning of the year. It is crazy where we have ended up here on March 11th, essentially looking into this season as well. In terms of three-point shooting, the 76ers, overall in this game, they end at 38%, but it was just downhill after that first quarter. And you looked at that first quarter saying some energy, something could be there possibly. And then the next 3 quarters, you look at the 76ers team and say, okay, this is kind of what you expected going into this game, and them not coming out with the victory. So once again, they fall 132 to 123. For some people that are rejoicing, and some fans may be watching this, or if people who are just fans of the NBA saying, why are you happy about a team losing? Well, people out there are looking at what other things happened in the NBA last night. Nets beating the Lakers, Raptors beating the Wizards, Hornets defeating the Heat. So the picture of the play-in spot not looking as good in terms of where they can go below in these standings as well. So the 76ers, once again, they fall last night 22 and 42 overall. We'll continue to break down this game a little bit here on Locked On 76ers, and we'll touch on that when we come back after the break. But first, we have to tell you about Skims. So If you enjoy wearing Skims or if you've never worn it, well, ladies out there, if you want to give your significant other something special, they now have a line for men. And you're going to want to go check this out. It's the fit, it's the comfort, and finding just the right style as well. Skims has been able to change all of that. Their men's line offers something for everybody, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Once again, it's not just for the women's line anymore. They're giving it to the men's line as well. So if you're working out, running errands, they're the most comfortable and reliable in addition to that too. Plus the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you are not having anything there at all. It's important that you shop Skims men's at skims.com/lockedonnba at Skims stores. Men, if you're watching this, this could be for you, or if ladies, you're trying to get your men something special, this could be something that you get as a little bit of a gift. The Skims new line, once again, let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Once again, that's shop Skims men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and in Skims stores as well. Let them know that we send you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey. Don't forget that very important part, and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. A great opportunity to be able to go check out Skims, not just for women, for men too. So make sure you go check it out today. '76ers in a really, really weird spot this season. I never thought, Keith, in this year, when we had the conversation of Joel Embiid not playing back-to-backs, it was injured during the preseason, Paul George not playing back-to-backs, I knew that might have been frustrating and the chemistry could have lacked the 76ers, but I never thought it would end up to this, a tanking team that somehow, when we talk about they look bad, continue to just look worse, and a bad team overall. It is crazy where we have ended up this year.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of it, well, it's funny. It is crazy, but I keep going back to their second preseason game. When, who was it? They shut everything down, right?
Yeah.
Maxey didn't play. Paul George didn't play. Embiid wasn't even with the team. Talking about when they went to Boston, right? So when you look at that, you say to yourself, like, wow, this is what this team is like in real life. But part of the problem is, or the majority of the problem is, this is what happens when you go out and you get three max players in this era with the second apron and everything. So what your roster is loaded with, you have a couple of, guys like Kelly Oubre making 8 to 9, 7, 8, 9 million. But for the most part, you have cheap labor. So cheap labor is either a veteran who's towards the end of his career and he agrees to take a minimum contract, which Eric Gordon did, Kyle Lowry did, and Reggie Jackson did before he was traded. Or you go out and you get a guy who's undrafted, or you get him in the second round, late second round, and you give him a two-way deal. And what they're doing is they're what you call those career minimum type of guys. So this is the problem. So when your roster is so predicated on Embiid, Maxey, and George excelling, and you take them out, and all of a sudden you have a night where you're starting Justin Edwards, Lonnie Walker, who just shows up, Jared Butler, Yabu, so Quentin Grimes, who's new, so this is where they are. And it's because of, I hate to say it, is those three contracts that you gave. The only people you can afford are these type of players. You know what I mean? The cheap labor, so to speak.
And my worry with that for the Sixers as an organization, from ownership, from Daryl Morey, trickling down to Nick Nurse and the players, and we've talked about this before, and not to go off topic of the game, but looking at the 76ers really quick as a whole, this is where you worry about the future a little bit, because you're looking at a player that you just gave an extension that might be getting another surgery, that might never go back to the dominating way. You're looking at Paul George, a year older, dealing with some injuries as well. And maybe you're turning to Tyrese Maxey now, if Joel Embiid can't be as dominant as he was, in past seasons. And then you have all of this to work with. Now, granted, they have Jared McCain and other pieces too. And maybe they do get a good draft pick. This season's still not over yet, so we don't know where the 76ers are going to end up. But when you're talking about these players and what they've done for a 1-year team, that's what we're looking at. That's what they wanted to do. You bring in Paul George because you want to go to the championship, or that's what they thought in this big three, and you want to go to the finals. That's your ultimate goal. How long does that work in the long run? Because it could either work really well or completely be a failure, Keith. And right now it's a failure. And we're seeing kind of, the remedies of that throughout these games when you're playing guys like a Justin Edwards, like a Jeff Doughton and Ricky Council, and they're getting 25 plus to 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, the big problem is Joel. As much as we talk about Paul George, as long as if Joel's playing on top of his game, then you have the two-man game between him and Maxey. Paul George, whatever he does, it becomes complementary. Right now, you can also argue that, well, you didn't have to. if you didn't give Paul George that max, you could have got two quality players. You could have got a lights-out shooter, and you could have got a quality, a glue guy, so to speak, to fill out that starting lineup, right? So those are two. Those are two things that they could have. But to me, the problem is Embiid. It's Embiid's health. When Embiid looks good, the 76ers look good. And right now we look at this roster, and you have to say a little bit of they gambled. And I'm not going to say mismanagement, because the one thing I will say is that Paul George was the top free agent target.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, before he was injured, he was putting up Wilt Chamberlain type numbers, but they gambled and it didn't work out for the 76ers. And this is where we are. And like when we talk about the not trying to tank thing, the problem is, is they just don't have a good roster. Right. Like even when we go back to, we talking about last night games with the Hawks. So Dyson Daniels was looking like the second coming of an efficient Kobe Bryant, right? Dyson Daniels is really a defensive stopper. Like, he's that guy. But he was extremely efficient yesterday, and then you look at the Utah Jazz, as bad as that team is, right? And they've been playing tough as of late. It was noticeable that they had better players than the 76ers. I mean, it was just noticeable. So this is the where they are when we talk about they're not tanking, they're just bad. But now I think it's getting to a point where the more they slide, especially if they lose to Toronto on Wednesday, the more they slide, the more they have to be realistic and think like, it's time to shut it down. It just is. It is time to shut it down.
I've been saying for really almost 2 weeks now that's where I was on the situation, just because of the injuries happening and what's the point of even getting a play-in spot. And I get, as an organization, you don't want to completely say it's over and tank until it really, really, really feels that way. Well, we're getting closer to the really, 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 especially looking ahead to Wednesday as well. So we'll touch on this tanking, not tanking even more, because I know that's what everybody's looking forward to at this moment. That's the big conversation happening right now. So we'll touch on it briefly when we come back on the other side. And we do have to tell you about Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen, whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project. Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece no matter your space or budget. So from cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at the prices that fit your budget. Finding the perfect piece. I was looking for a new rug to kind of tie my living room together. I just got a new couch as well, and I just wanted something that accented a little bit so people would maybe notice, or something that I liked that was a little bit aesthetically pleasing. Wayfair had so many stylish options that I absolutely loved at great prices, because some of these other companies charging way too much for a rug to put in my living room, but Wayfair was absolutely perfect. Easy shopping and delivery. The site made it simple to compare styles, and my order arrived fast with free delivery. More than just furniture, I was surprised to find everything from storage solutions to patio decor, making it my go-to for all things at home. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So this whole tank or not situation, it makes me laugh because this is really where we're at right now. But I don't want to go as much towards this Raptors preview because we'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. Keith, if the 76ers lose to Toronto, now everybody keep in mind, the Raptors just beat the Wizards, so the 76ers are a half game back in the tanking standings essentially of the Raptors right now. Hornets won, Nets won last night too. If the 76ers lose to the Raptors, are you saying shut it down? Shut Tyrese Maxey down, shut Paul George down. The season is a complete wipe. Why even put those guys in if they're injured? Is that your limit?
You know what? It's weird. Like I think that you can't just base it off of that game. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is getting kind of late, right? Though late in the season. Yeah. I mean, you can't base it off of that game. I think you have to base it off of, like, if you lose this game, but if Brooklyn loses, if Chicago loses, then you say to yourself, hey, we're still in it. We're still in it.
Crazy.
Because, like, you know, when you look at it, it's the crazy part is, so they play Toronto now. Then they play Dallas in a couple games, which is also a team that's struggling, right? San Antonio is a team that they play on March the 21st, is a team that's struggling a little bit. Then you have New Orleans, Washington, Miami, Toronto again. So, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you look at it and you might say, well, maybe we still have a chance. But if you look at it and those other teams are like winning and you're sliding down, then yeah, it's kind of like, that's when you know, okay, bro, it's time. It's time. Because I do, like, the Toronto game to me is kind of weird. Like, I don't give Toronto props for beating the Wizards, right?
Yeah,
but
no.
I do think that the Sixers are going to lose to the Pacers. Then after that, they do play Dallas. Dallas is struggling. I got them losing to Houston, losing to OKC. And then San Antonio is kind of like, what's up? But if they, put it this way, if they have the team that they played with last night and the night before, I do have them losing all those games.
How could you not?
Yeah.
How could you not? Honestly, at this point, it's once again, it's no disrespect to the two ways. Send those guys back to the Blue Coats so Delaware can win some games and just have the Sixers completely tank as is, because this roster is not going to win many games anyway. But when you're looking at it right now for Philadelphia too, and these other teams, once again, I don't want to get too much into it because we'll save a lot of this content for tomorrow, but the Cavs take on the Nets in the Nets next game, and then it's the Nets and the Bulls. So you're looking at that matchup. That's a big matchup. And I think the craziest thing to me, Keith, is you're not only looking at the Sixers matchups now. You're saying, okay, if they lose, what are the Hornets doing? Okay, what are the Nets doing? What are the Raptors doing? Of course, that's the next matchup for the 76ers. Now you're looking at all these different teams, not because you're looking to see if you can get into a play-in spot or a playoff spot, but because you're looking to see who's going to have the worst record at the end of the year, who's going to fall in those standings a little bit. It's just crazy, crazy times with the Philadelphia 76ers. I never thought they would be here, but I'm believing it now with this team that we're currently seeing, what we saw really the past 2 nights.
Yeah, and here's the crazy thing. The Raptors could go on to a little run because, I mean, just to be, I mean, like here, look, this is their next games. And I know we're going to talk more about it, but they have the Sixers, then they go to Utah, they go to Portland, they go to Phoenix, they go to Golden State, San Antonio, Washington, Brooklyn, Charlotte, then the Sixers again. So they could win all but maybe 2 of those games. You know what I mean? I'm talking about Golden State beating them. I mean, honestly, and maybe Phoenix. But aside from that, their schedule is easy.
Yeah, you're talking about the Raptors on the up and up. I know Sixers fans watching this, they're probably the Raptors' biggest fans right now to try to win them some games. And, you know, once again, a lot of 76ers fans are looking at the 76ers tanking now and trying to get picks. And we're also going to dive into a little bit of that tomorrow as well. Like, who could they realistically get? Because, you know, we consistently talk about Cooper Flag. Clearly, he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, but the Wizards are probably going to have that pick unless the 76ers can somehow get into that lottery, which there is an opportunity to, but there's still other good players that they could get. And you're talking about now, where do you go with this team? And that's a conversation too that you can have. Do they stick, you know, and trying to just have the big 3, or do they go with the youth side of things with Maxey, McCain, and this new draft pick they might bring in? Once again, if Joel Embiid's healthy, it's Joel Embiid's team. But we don't know the reality of that until we see what happens next season because he's shut down for the rest of the year. So it is crazy times in Philadelphia. And it's so interesting just to watch how this season has unfolded. We're talking about worse than some of the process years with Philadelphia. And it has been a rough year, but I know there's some positivity out there for some people in Philadelphia with this whole Tech Bowl going on now. So I guess 76ers fans can look to that. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about this team. If you want to see some wins or if you're ready for this team to just shut it down. Once again, we will fully go into it more tomorrow. The 76ers, they fell to the Hawks last night, 132-123. And they will take on the Raptors in Toronto. That's on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Make sure you continue to join us all week long on Locked On 76ers. We'll be following that game and the rest of the league very, very closely. See where the 76ers continue to fall in these standings. And we want to know your thoughts in the comments. Once again, if you're listening on wherever you listen to podcasts, or in addition, if you're watching us on YouTube. And of course, you can follow us with our free daily newsletter. That's on LockedOnDaily.com. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. They fall to the Hawks 132-123 for Keith Pompey. I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.